Why do most older people seem to fade after 80? Even those who were sharp and doing well just a few years before often begin to decline. The truth is, most people assume that what happens after 80 is purely about genetics or luck. But that's far from the whole story. In this video, we're going to look at 5 unexpected reasons often overlooked and rarely talked about that explain why many older adults struggle to live long or stay healthy past 80. These aren't the usual suspects like diet, smoking, or exercise. These are deeper, more subtle factors that often slip through the cracks, even in people who've done most things right. And the good news, once you know what they are, you can do something about them. So, if you've ever wondered what really gets in the way of longevity after 80 and how to guard against it while you still have time, stay with me until the end of this video, because these 5 unexpected reasons might just help you change the way you age before it's too late. Now, let's get started. If you find this helpful, please subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. It helps us keep making content that supports real, meaningful aging. Number 1, loss of microsocial engagement. One of the most overlooked reasons many older adults decline after 80 is the quiet disappearance of what experts call microsocial engagement, those small, almost invisible interactions that used to sprinkle daily life with warmth and connection. These are not the deep friendships or family gatherings we usually think about, but the simple, everyday moments that once gave your world texture without you even realizing it. Think about how often you used to say hello to the mailman, share a quick laugh with the cashier, wave at a neighbor walking their dog, or exchange a kind word with someone at the bus stop. These little encounters might have felt forgettable at the time, but they were doing important work behind the scenes. They were telling your brain you belonged, keeping your social wiring sharp, lifting your mood, and giving your nervous system a sense of calm stability. After 80, many of these natural touchpoints start to slip away. Maybe you stop going to the store because family helps with shopping, or you prefer to order things online. Maybe you avoid chatting with strangers because your hearing makes conversation harder, or you no longer stroll down the street because your knees feel unsteady. At first, this seems like simplification, a way to make life easier, but beneath the surface something vital is quietly being lost. Those small sparks of human contact were never just routine, they were nourishment. Without them, the brain begins to treat isolation like stress, releasing hormones that raise inflammation, weaken immunity, and even shrink the networks that control memory and emotional balance. That's why so many older adults who pull back from these interactions often begin to feel foggy, lonely, or invisible, even if their families still love them deeply. The beauty, though, is that this process can be reversed, often in gentle ways. I once knew a man in his 80s who stayed mentally sharp and cheerful simply because he walked to the same cafe each morning, greeted the staff by name, and waved to the same few neighbors along his route. That 5-minute stretch of connection wasn't just habit, it gave him purpose, it reminded him he was still seen, and it energized his spirit for the rest of the day. You don't need dramatic social events to stay alive in spirit, you just need consistent threads of contact woven into the fabric of each day. Whether it's chatting briefly with the delivery person, smiling at a child passing by, or making small talk with a store clerk, these little interactions act like vitamins for your heart and brain. If you've noticed that your days have grown quieter, that you speak to fewer people outside your closest circle, or that you sometimes feel invisible in your own neighborhood, it's worth paying attention. Because these tiny connections are not trivial, they are lifelines. They whisper to your body and mind, you still matter, you still belong, you are still part of this living world. And holding on to that message may be one of the most powerful medicines for staying vibrant well past 80. Number 2, overcautious inactivity. Another hidden reason many people begin to decline after 80 is something I call overcautious inactivity. As the years pass, we're told again and again to be careful, don't fall, don't strain yourself, and while these warnings come from a place of love, they can slowly turn into chains that hold a person back from living fully. At first, the extra caution feels sensible. You skip climbing the stairs too often, you avoid bending to pick something up, or you decide to rest instead of taking that walk outside because the sidewalk feels uneven. Over time, however, these small choices add up, and before long, the body starts to live in a shrinking circle. Muscles weaken, joints stiffen, balance declines, and confidence fades. The heartbreaking part is that the less you move, the more dangerous moving becomes, and so the cycle of fear grows stronger. It's like a bird that forgets how to fly because it spends too much time sitting in the cage. The wings that once carried it effortlessly no longer remember their strength. I've seen many older adults who were once vibrant walkers, gardeners, or dancers slowly surrender to this invisible prison, not because their bodies gave out completely, but because fear convinced them to stop trying. And once that spark of movement dims, it often affects the mind too. The brain thrives on physical activity, because every step sends signals that keep blood flowing, neurons firing, and moods lifted. Without it, people may feel foggier, more anxious, or even depressed, which then makes them less likely to move, a painful downward spiral. But here's the truth, staying active after 80 doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring real limitations. It means choosing safe, simple, confidence-building movements that remind your body it is still alive. I once knew a woman who, after her doctor warned her about falls, stopped gardening entirely. Within months, her legs grew weak, and she began to lose her independence. When she finally returned to gently tending a few potted plants on her porch, the joy returned to her face, her steps grew steadier, and her spirit lifted. Movement gave her back not only strength but dignity. And that's the message I want to leave with you: activity is not the enemy, fear is. Even the smallest daily actions, standing to stretch, reaching for something above your head, walking a few extra steps, are powerful medicine for the body and soul. Overcautious inactivity might feel like safety, but in truth, it quietly steals years of strength and freedom. What protects you most is not avoiding movement, but embracing it wisely, with respect for your body's limits and faith in its resilience. Because every time you choose to move, you're telling your body, I still trust you, I still need you, and I'm not done yet. Number 3. Disrupted sleep cycles from irregular light exposure. Another hidden reason many older adults begin to fade after 80 has less to do with weakness of the body and more to do with the quiet rhythms of the brain, specifically, how light and darkness shape sleep. Our bodies are designed with an internal clock, often called the circadian rhythm, which tells us when to feel awake and when to feel sleepy. For most of our lives, this rhythm is gently guided by natural light, the sun rising in the morning, shining during the day, and fading into evening darkness that signals the body to rest. But after 80, many people stop getting enough regular sunlight and spend much more time indoors under dim or artificial light. Curtains stay closed, days blur together, and nights are often spent with glowing TV screens or lamps that confuse the brain. Over time, this disrupts the body's natural sleep-wake cycle. Instead of falling into deep, restorative sleep, older adults may doze lightly, wake often, or find themselves up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling. They nap in the afternoon not out of laziness but because their bodies no longer know when they're supposed to rest and when they're supposed to be alert. This isn't just about feeling tired. Broken sleep robs the brain of its chance to repair, clear toxins, and strengthen memory. That's why so many older adults who stop getting natural light exposure begin to feel foggy, unsteady, or more easily overwhelmed. I once spoke with a gentleman in his late 80s who told me he felt like every day was a blur, drifting between naps and restless nights. But when his daughter began gently taking him outside for a short walk each morning and dimming the lights in the house after sunset, within weeks his sleep grew deeper, his energy improved, and his mood lifted. It wasn't a miracle pill, it was the power of natural rhythm. Our brains crave the reassurance of light and dark, the signals that whisper, now it's time to rise, now it's time to rest. Without that rhythm, the body slowly drifts into confusion, and the mind pays the price. If you're over 80 or caring for someone who is, pay attention to how much natural daylight you're truly getting. Even sitting by a sunny window, opening the curtains wide, or spending 10 minutes outdoors can reset the body's clock. In the evening, soften the lights, turn off screens, and let the darkness remind the body it is safe to rest. It's easy to underestimate the role of light, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful medicines for sleep, memory, mood, and longevity. Disrupted sleep cycles from irregular light exposure don't just cause tiredness, they quietly chip away at the joy of living. But the good news is, with just a little sunlight in the day and gentle darkness at night, you can give your body back its natural rhythm, and with it, the strength to keep shining well past 80. Number 4. Emotional suppression from loss and isolation. As people move beyond 80, another hidden weight often begins to press on their hearts, the unspoken pain of emotional suppression caused by loss and isolation. By this stage of life, almost everyone has carried heavy goodbyes, friends who have passed away, a spouse who is no longer there to share the quiet evenings, siblings who are gone, or children who are now busy with families of their own. At first, many elders try to stay strong by keeping their feelings locked inside. They smile politely, tell others they're fine, and avoid burdening anyone with their loneliness. But inside, grief sits unprocessed, like a shadow that never lifts. Over time, this emotional suppression drains both the mind and the body. Science shows that when emotions are bottled up, the body interprets it as stress, releasing chemicals that weaken the immune system, increase inflammation, and dull the spark of vitality. That's why so many older adults who hide their sadness begin to look tired, disconnected, or even hollow, as if their spirit has retreated inward. The isolation only makes it worse, because with fewer people around to share stories, laugh, or cry with, there's no safe outlet for the pain. I once knew a woman in her 80s who had lost her husband and quietly stopped talking about him, thinking that if she kept her grief hidden, it would hurt less. But the silence weighed heavier each day, and soon her health declined. When she finally joined a small support group of widows, where she could speak his name, share her memories, and even shed tears freely, her energy returned. She said it felt as though a knot inside her chest had finally loosened. That is the power of emotional release, it heals, while suppression quietly harms. The truth is, sadness, anger, or longing are not signs of weakness, they are proof of love and life lived fully. When those emotions are acknowledged instead of buried, they can be transformed into wisdom, compassion, and even renewed purpose. What often keeps older adults alive in spirit is not the absence of loss, but the presence of connection, someone who listens without judgment, someone who validates their feelings, or even just a friend who holds their hand in silence. If you are in your 80s or care for someone who is, it's vital to recognize that unspoken grief and loneliness are not small matters, they are silent thieves of health and joy. Encouraging honest conversation, creating opportunities for sharing, or simply sitting together without distraction can make all the difference. Emotional suppression may seem like strength on the outside, but it erodes resilience from within. Releasing those feelings, even in small ways, reminds the heart that it is still capable of love, that it is still connected, and that it is still alive. Because the truth is, what heals us after 80 is not just medicine or food, but the courage to feel, to speak, and to be heard. Number 5. Gradual loss of daily purpose. Perhaps one of the most profound yet often unspoken reasons many people begin to decline after 80 is the gradual loss of daily purpose. Purpose is what makes each morning worth rising for, what shapes the rhythm of our days, and what keeps our hearts and minds engaged with life itself. When we are younger, our lives are naturally filled with purpose, raising children, building a career, caring for family, maintaining a household, or simply contributing to our community. Every day brings some sense of responsibility and meaning, even in the smallest tasks. But after 80, many of those roles slowly fall away. The children are grown, the career is long behind, the body no longer allows for the same level of activity, and sometimes others begin making decisions on your behalf. At first, this might feel like a relief, no more deadlines, no more constant obligations, but soon, the absence of responsibility can turn into an emptiness. Days start to blend together, mornings feel harder to greet, and the question quietly rises, what am I here for now? Without a sense of purpose, the mind loses motivation, the body loses energy, and even the spirit begins to dim. I once met an older man who told me that when he stopped tending his small vegetable garden, something he had done faithfully for decades, his days felt heavier and his health started to slip. It wasn't the vegetables themselves that mattered, it was the simple act of nurturing life, watching something grow, and knowing that his hands still created value. When he returned to that small routine, even on a reduced scale, his joy and strength returned as well. That's the hidden truth: purpose doesn't need to be grand or world-changing. It can be as simple as looking after a pet, writing a letter to a grandchild, folding laundry, making tea for a friend, or even keeping a journal of your thoughts. These small acts give the heart a reason to keep beating with passion. When purpose fades, people often retreat into passivity, letting days pass by without engagement, and that lack of stimulation quietly accelerates decline. But when purpose is reignited, even in a modest form, life feels worth living again, energy rises, and the body often follows the spirit's lead. For those over 80, discovering or maintaining daily purpose may be the most powerful gift you can give yourself. It doesn't matter how small it looks to others, what matters is that it gives you meaning, a reason to open your eyes each morning, and a reminder that your life still matters in ways big and small. Because in the end, purpose is not about productivity, it is about connection, contribution, and love. And as long as you have a reason to care for something or someone, you carry within you the spark that keeps life vibrant, no matter your age. People rarely fade from a single moment. It's the accumulation of subtle losses, small social touches, movement, light, emotional honesty, and daily reason, that quiets life. The good news is these shifts are reversible, often by gentle, deliberate steps: one extra conversation, a short walk, a morning in the sun, a safe place to grieve, one small task that matters. Which of the 5 surprised you? Which one felt uncomfortably familiar? Share one thing you'll try in the comments. If this helped you, please like, share, and subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path. Your support keeps these conversations going. Thanks for watching. Take one small step today and let it grow.